Hi, it's Nancy with Icon Apprentice, and welcome back. We're continuing with Christ the Bridegroom, and of course, before we begin, we always start with prayer, offering up those intentions we intend to write into our icons. Let us pray. Let us start with our raw umber, and we're just going to kind of put that on the outer edges of the hair. Because what we're just trying to do is give an idea that it's a little bit further out from the eyes, from the light emanating from them. Getting smaller as I come down toward the bottom. All right, I think that's probably pretty good. Maybe we'll put just a tiny bit at the bottom of the beard as well. And on maybe the underside of the mustache. As we come down. So as I'm sitting here looking at this before I start the hair, I realize I actually didn't give him a chin, and I didn't give him any like little cheekies down here. He should have some little cheeks and stuff down here. So my fault. I don't even know what I was thinking. So we've got to go back here and start with our orange, because we didn't go in here and do that. So let's go in here. Let's give him a chin, which would be about right in here. I don't know what I was thinking. And then he should also have a little bit of area right in here. Come down. Okay, that's going to look kind of funny, but let's let that dry a little bit. bit of flush 3. All right, so I think now we can go in and do the beard. Oh boy, you never know when you're gonna make a mess. And this is what we're going to use to separate the hair and create our locks of hair. And if we go back and look at our line drawing, and we can see that the part is kind of at an angle, and it comes down to just about like the side of his eye. So maybe right in here to right there. So it would kind of go like that. Just to kind of give us a guideline. All right. And then we'll come in here and start. So one of the things that I think that we will do before we get started on some of the detail work is to put the gold on the halo. And while that's drying, then we can start doing some detail work down here lower on the icon. So we'll put our first coat of gold on here. And of course, when we use gold, we always must use a separate water container, and we want to use clean brushes. Once we're finished with those brushes, we're going to switch them out for another brush to complete details on the rest of this. Otherwise, we risk contaminating with that metallic paint everything else on our icon. So I will be using the large number 6, a little bit of water here, dipping into the rich gold. Gold can sometimes be a little bit of a persnickety paint, for want of a better word. So sometimes you have to approach it using very little water so that you get some coverage. Otherwise, it's possible it could take you so many layers to place on here and get just a really good coverage. So my paint is actually kind of thick. I'm definitely not following the rule of thumb that we place enough either medium or water in it to make it a creamy consistency. This is a very thick, fairly thick. I mean, I'm just using a tad of water here. And of course, we want to make sure we don't leave any lines if we can help it. We want it to be as smooth an application as possible. Get some, I believe we did the reed in Provencial Beige. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is we'll use a little bit of Provencial Beige and add a little bit of Unbleached titanium to that. And that's going to come up with our first highlight color on the reed. From there, I think we will move to using just an Unbleached titanium for the final highlights on that reed. So for the first highlight, I am going to add a little bit of this Unbleached titanium to my Provencial Beige. It's obviously a lighter color, but it's not so light that it's going to look garish next to that Provencial Beige color, that original base coat. I'm going to turn this around and start from the bottom and work up. And that way I'm avoiding this area. So here's where we're going to, I'll come in and we'll do and I'm leaving the underneath leaving a small area underneath to be darker. And basically it's giving me the illusion of highlighting on the top and some depth. I'm just touching and pushing and walking up, and I'm not highlighting the whole thing, but it's getting most of it. Once again, laying in my lighter color toward the top, leaving that little bit of darker color at the bottom. Doing a second coat, shrinking up a little bit. So I'm just making it, I'm using the same color now, I'm just making it a smaller highlight. I'm raising this up just a little bit so you can see I'm going up above. I'm not coming all the way to the edge, going all the way to the top, and not all the way to that edge. And that's how I'm starting to get that round feel on these joints here. This is the same color, I didn't change colors. Smaller and smaller highlight. Alright, so we're starting to see some detail, and I think I'm going to add then for this next one, I'm adding a little bit more bleached titanium. Alright, let's go in here, see if we're dry. And we'll make our third and final highlight. This one is going to be even smaller. That's a little bit bright. Tiny bit bright. So I just cleaned off my brush. I'm going to come in here and soften that just a little bit. Cleaned my brush, took off most of the water. I'm just dabbing it. So what I'm going to do, I took a little bit of water, I'm just going to pull out that direction, some of this paint, just to thin it. Remember how we talked about the opacity factor and how when we add white becomes more opaque. That's one of the things that you have to be careful of, and that's what happened right there, is the fact that it was not. I laid down a little bit of paint, I wiped off my brush, now I'm going to come back in and just kind of spread that out. So that's how you test the opacity factor here. Lay a little bit of paint down. If it's not going to red like you'd like it to, or if the opacity factor is just too high, then you're going to bring it down a little bit. And you use water, or a flow medium is fine as well. Now I'm kind of keeping, or trying to keep this highlight right on the top. Right on the top of this reed, in the center. What that'll do, that'll help me get the illusion that the sides are rounding. So right down the center if you can. If it gets too dark, don't fret. We can always come back in and do some kind of a little glaze over that. So I don't want you to feel like if it gets a little too bright that there's nowhere to go with it. There is. We can always come back in. It's important to know in iconography, generally we don't take away paint because every brush stroke's a prayer. So you're not ever going to remove a prayer from your icon. But what you can do is you can go in and you can add another layer, more prayer, just to refine that area that you feel is too dark or too bright. Made this area just a tiny bit brighter just because it's right next to skin. Skin is going to cause it to be brighter right there.